last year, you'll remember, the court struck down race-based college admissions, and in a broader ruling that in effect struck down today's twisted idea of affirmative action. It was the most consequential court decision of last spring's session. So just as an illustration of what sort of real-world activity follows a major ruling like this and what a game changer it can be, I bring you Dan Lennington, who's a lawyer for the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty and has been leading Will's legal charge against racially biased hiring programs and grants and other sort of leftist race-based ideas since the Supreme Court made that ruling a year ago. Good morning, Dan Lennington. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Jay.
Well, it's good to have you on, and I wanted to have you on because you were featured in a lengthy Washington Post article on this last week that I'm sure very few people saw. First of all, it's behind a Washington Post firewall, and who in this audience reads the Post. But this Biden dementia debate chewed up everyone's attention. So this is good stuff. The Post reported that a barrage of 100 or hundreds of federal lawsuits have been filed against government and corporate programs that discriminate based on race since the ruling. So how many has Will been involved with or launched on your own?
We have filed about 15 actual lawsuits against race-based programs and race-based policies around the country. We have 58 clients in 18 different states now, and we represent all of our clients pro bono, as I hope your listeners know. And we go around the country challenging these programs in which state, local, federal agencies and individuals and even corporate entities discriminate against individuals based on race. This could mean, jobs, scholarships. This could mean grants for small businesses. This could mean set-asides or preferences for government contracting. It really runs the gamut, and we have had a lot of success. And there's, imitation is the best form of flattery. And there's been a lot of other groups similar to Will who have jumped on the bandwagon happily. And in sort of a friendly competition with us, have also filed nationwide lawsuits and gotten a lot of great success ever since the Supreme Court struck down the race-based affirmative action.
Yeah, and Will is just a state-based, Wisconsin-based regional nonprofit, as you say, and takes donations, by the way. Is it will.org where people could go and find out more? I think that's it.
It is will-law.org.
Okay.
People can find out more information there.
But as you say, other groups have jumped onto this as well. Lawsuits are in the works. And give us as an example of a few of those that you've actually concluded, and what sort of racially based programs your team or this effort have snuffed out already in less than a year.
Right. So this is actually started in the tumultuous summer of 2020 with the George Floyd death. A lot of corporations and government officials started to pursue equity and DEI, and you saw those ramifications in school boards and all sorts of places around the country. And what happened is that after President Biden was elected, he passed a number of laws, signed into law a number of programs that specifically helped people based on race. The first one, which really got our program started back in 2021, almost exactly 3 years ago. This is when we started our Equality Under the Law project, which was the 4th of July, 2021, was a program that was going to forgive loans to farmers. A lot of farmers have debt. A lot of farmers have debt owed to the federal government. Mm-hmm. And this program, instituted by President Biden, was going to only forgive the debts of minority farmers. And so we represented farmers from about 9 different states. We sued the federal government and said, you are discriminating against our farmers, our clients, based on race. We won that. We got the first nationwide injunction against that $4 billion program. And we followed that up with another victory almost immediately against a $28.6 billion COVID relief fund, which was supposed to help restaurants, but it prioritized minority-owned restaurants above non-minority-owned restaurants, and we got the first nationwide injunction against that program too. So that's really what kicked it off in 2021. Yeah,
I know you have other examples here, but it strikes me that those are 2 good examples of how some of these programs can be well-intended and also be racist. They're intended to help a particular minority group or minority groups, which is not a bad thing, but you just can't do this, especially when it comes to a government program. And some of the biggest wins have come against our federal and state governments, right? Because so many race-based efforts have been layered in by our elected officials over the years.
Yes, we just won our most recent victory against the Biden administration was just a couple of months ago against something called the Minority Business Development Agency. It's been an agency that's been around for about 55 years. It has been stood up by numerous presidents, funded by numerous presidents, and Joe Biden really put it on steroids and supercharged it, this agency, which was designed specifically to help only businesses owned by minorities. And we represented clients from Wisconsin and Texas and Florida who had pursued help. They owned small businesses. One was an architect from Wisconsin. And they had gone to this agency and said, I would like help. I'm a small business person. The agency said, no, we don't help white folks. And that is, it's illegal, unconstitutional, and it's immoral. It's treating people as members of a racial group rather than individuals. And our sort of motto at will with this whole thing is that our government and these corporate programs need to treat people as people, treat people as individuals, not look at someone based on their race and say, I am going to presume that you are disadvantaged because of the color of your skin, which is exactly what these federal programs do.
Yep.
They assume, in other words, they stereotype. They say because you are Black, Hispanic, or Asian, or Native American, you are at a disadvantage, and we must help you specifically to the exclusion of other groups. Mm-hmm. That's wrong, and that's not what we do in America. That's not what's in the Declaration of Independence, what we celebrate tomorrow, that all men are created equal.
Here. We're talking with Dan Lennington of the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, who's led the charge against a lot of these misguided race-based programs since the Supreme Court decision last year. I noticed that the Post reporter used affirmative action and DEI interchangeably. How would you label what it is that you're fighting to eliminate here? I think you sort of gave us some of that in the last answer, but are you fighting affirmative action or DEI?
Well, affirmative action is sort of the ancient term, the term that started back in the Kennedy administration, actually. We've seen it change and morph into different things. DEI is sort of the hot new word, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our friends over at the University of Wisconsin have changed that term. They use a term now called inclusive excellence. And that's what University of Wisconsin says. So it doesn't matter what they call it. What it is race-conscious decision-making. It's deciding things, deciding programs, policies, deciding whether to give grants or loans, deciding whether to give assistance, deciding whether to give government contracts, and where race is a factor. Race could be one of many factors, but our goal is complete race neutrality. That when the government or a corporation deals with an individual, that the individual is dealt with on an individual basis as an individual, and they're not given a leg up, they're not given a plus, they're not given anything else because they happen to be born with some sort of skin color. That's immoral, illegal, unconstitutional. We're going to fight that wherever it rears its head.
One expert in this Post piece, a professor from New York University, said, quote, any organization that provides a benefit to a person based on race, national origin, or sex now runs the risk of legal action against them. As if that's necessarily a bad thing, But here's the thing that it brings up that I think we need to make clear. This isn't an attempt to erase programs or campaigns that promote diversity or inclusion or reaching across the racial aisle, right?
Well, it depends what those are, how those are defined.
Exactly.
If those programs are defined as excluding someone or giving a preference only because of the color of their skin, or in part because of the color of their skin, then we're going to fight that. But if a company says, we want diversity, and we define diversity as where you grew up, what kind of income did your parents have? What are your thoughts? Are you political? Are you conservative? Are you apolitical? Are you liberal? There's a lot of diversity in this country. It is a shame to boil it all down to black versus white versus Hispanic versus Asian. That's sad. That's an archetype. That is stereotyping people. We have so much rich diversity in this country. Just in our state, people from the north are different than people who live in big cities. People who live in Waukesha County are people different than people who live in Brown County. I mean, people are different for a wide variety of interests that they may have in their personal beliefs. And that's far more interesting than just putting someone in a box and saying, you are diverse because you are black. That doesn't make any sense.
These laws are saying what you lawyers are saying is you can't institutionalize racial favoritism here. It's sad and amazing to me that for decades people were openly being denied a job or a raise or a promotion as a result of diversity quotas. But of course, blacks and Hispanics and minority members would turn that right around and say, well, welcome to our world. We've been denied all these things due to our skin color for hundreds of years in this country. So what is misguided about government-forced quotas? I mean, you've already sort of explained it, but for anyone who would say, well, what's so misguided about having government step in favor of minority groups?
Yeah, it demeans the dignity of an individual. It tells you as an individual, Jay, that the most important thing about you is your race, which I can, after listening to you for many years, say that is not the most interesting thing about you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
There are many interesting things about you, but we are teaching our kids at school, K through 12, that the most interesting thing about them, the most important thing about them is their race. That is wrong. That is not when we say all men are created equal, when we say that governments and corporations have to treat individuals as individuals and not as members of racial groups, we're saying that there is some inherent dignity in the individual, in you as a person. And when you come and you ask for help from the government, or you go to a bank and you want a loan, or you go to Freighter and you want health care, you should be treated according to you and your needs, not according to what some social scientist thinks is the race of the day. I mean, we're seeing this. Right. The Harvard decision, by the way, was about discrimination against Asian Americans. So, it's not just about a white versus black sort of archetype or paradigm. It is about individuals being treated with dignity as according to what they are valuable for individually, not as a member of the group.
So if the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty and your helpers in this effort have already had 15 decisions and you got 60-some lawsuits in the pipeline, this is hundreds of lawsuits that just in a year, hundreds of lawsuits that have been filed and are underway, and it's just a start, right? I mean, conservative legal groups like Will are actually encouraging anyone with a complaint about racial preferences in their workplace or in a government institution, et cetera, to come forward?
Yes, we are encouraging people to come forward. We represent people pro bono. That's what we do. We never charge a client. We are seeing, have had great success at the federal level. We have a big lawsuit that's going to be decided soon against the $37 billion federal highway set-asides and racial quotas about how we build highways in America are based on race. 10% of all the money goes to racial minorities. We are moving to open that up to everybody should be able to compete for contracts equally. So we're having great success at the federal level. We are really looking to target things at the state level now and against corporate America, which is really using race as a bludgeon against individuals. With the state of Wisconsin, Tony Evers spends $100 million a year on, quote, diverse businesses. $100 million of tax dollars a year go to businesses that supply things to the state based on race. If you are a contractor and you bid on something at the state of Wisconsin, they give you a 5% bonus. They lower your bid by 5%. So it's all over the place. It's affecting mostly small businesses, but also a lot of individuals. And yes, we'd love people to come forward and contact us.
Well, it's a huge job. I think it's a noble and necessary thing you're doing, though, because if we ever do want to really get to the point that America is a racially blind society, it starts with an even playing field for everyone, not a government-imposed version of what that only some people view as fair. So thanks for doing the work. And the Post article also points out you're a regional nonprofit, not a huge hotshot law firm, but there are now a number of the law firms like Will that are doing this because they're finding it important as part of their mission to have citizens fight back against government and systematic injustice or government and systematic overreach. And I just would point out again that Will is driven by donations. I've been a donor, here and there for years. I'm not going to say I've sent big money your way, but I've donated to Will, and people can go to will-law.org to donate if they wish. Thanks for being on today, sir. I appreciate it.